Every narcissist believes they are the one who gets to decide when the story ends. They want to be the one who says goodbye first, the one who walks away in triumph, the one who decides when your emotions should shut off. To them, love is never about connection. It's a game of power where the one who controls the other's emotions keeps the throne. But there is one thing they never see coming. The moment you stop reacting. No anger, no defense, no effort to make them understand. Just a strange kind of stillness, the silence not of defeat but of awakening. When you begin to see through the game, every script they've written starts to crumble. They feel it in your eyes that no longer search, no longer need to be believed. And in that instant, their power dissolves like sand under the waves. A narcissist can endure contempt, but not the gaze of someone who truly understands them, because that understanding shatters the illusion they live by, the belief that they are always in control of the story. This is not a story of revenge, but of energetic reversal. For the first time, they are not the one walking away, they are forced to. Not because you're cold, but because the light of your awareness makes it impossible for them to exist in your presence. And it begins quietly, no arguments, no drama, only you, once easily swept away by emotion, becoming still. You start asking questions. You no longer rush to believe everything they say, no longer tremble when they go silent. You observe, you listen, and you notice the strange gaps in their stories, contradictions you once excused. Now you don't excuse them anymore. You simply ask, softly but piercingly, "You said you were there last night, but why is there this message? Who did you tell that to? Because they seem to know before I did." Just those questions alone make their mask crack. Because a narcissist doesn't fear the truth as much as they fear being caught in a lie. When they feel the light of awareness shining into their shadows, they react not as someone being questioned, but as someone cornered. They'll lash out, play the victim, or turn the attack back on you. "You're so controlling. I can't believe you doubt me. You're trying to manipulate me." All just tactics to move the spotlight away from themselves. And when you no longer take the bait, when you simply watch in silence, no defense, no explanation, they begin to suffocate. You're no longer in the script. You don't yell, you don't cry, you don't apologize. You simply stand in truth, and that is unbearable to them. A narcissist can endure hatred, but not the gaze of calm understanding. It strips them bare. So they start preparing to discard you, not because they want to, but because your presence has become a mirror. Every word you speak, every glance you give, reflects the one thing. They start to unravel. The moment they sense that you no longer react as before, they lose the emotional anchor that sustained their illusion of control. Your silence echoes louder than any accusation. It becomes a mirror reflecting what they tried so hard to hide. They talk louder, laugh harder, act deeper, but the more they try, the more their distortion shows through their voice and eyes. They can feel power slipping from their hands. They start doing irrational things, monitoring your schedule, asking endless questions, studying your every move. In their mind, your awakening is not progress. It's a threat. Because for them, truth has never been light. It has always been the enemy of control. The calmer you become, the more anxious they get. The quieter you are, the more noise they must make to drown their own fear. They'll resurrect old stories, replay sweet memories, trying to lure you back into the emotional maze. But this time, you don't fall for it. You don't need to prove that you're right or make them understand. You simply watch, as though you're seeing a play you once starred in. And at that moment, your awareness starts to shine through every illusion. Jung once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." When you begin to illuminate, their facade starts to crumble. They no longer know how to act because you've stepped out of their script. You're no longer the one afraid of losing them. Now they are afraid of losing control over you. That's where the collapse begins. Quiet but devastating. Your calm gaze now terrifies them more than any confrontation. They feel exposed, stripped of their defenses, naked before the truth. And in their panic, they accuse you of being the one who's changed, cold or cruel. But deep down they know you're not cold. You've simply awakened. And that light is something they cannot survive beside. As their mask fractures, the pattern becomes visible. You begin to see what they've repeated with everyone before you. The same addiction to domination disguised as love. They don't bond, they conquer. They don't connect, they control. Every relationship is just another cycle of seduce, possess, devalue, discard, return. At first, they appear as light. They mirror your emotions, echo your values, reflect your wounds. They make you believe, finally, someone understands me. But they never understood. They studied. Every word, every gesture, every reaction was data. They didn't love who you are. They loved the power of making you feel. When you laughed because of them, they felt omnipotent. When you cried because of them, they felt real. In their world, emotion is not the language of the soul. It's a lever of control. Then comes possession. Love becomes a strategy. They make you believe your happiness depends on them. They reward you, then withdraw. Every compliment becomes a hook. Every silence a test. When you prove your devotion through submission, patience, or pain, they smile. Not from love, but from triumph. And when their control is secure, the game changes color. Devaluation begins. The person who once praised you now mocks your sensitivity. The one who admired your mind now calls you too much. You start doubting yourself, thinking maybe you've become unreasonable. But you haven't. You're awakening. The moment you question is the moment their power begins to crack. And then comes the discard, their so-called ending. But their discard is never final. It's just another manipulation. A test to see if they still own you. They disappear not out of boredom, but to measure your reaction. If you text, they win. If you plead, they win. If you try to fix things, they win big, because it means they still occupy your mind. They believe they can vanish and return at will, like a small god directing another person's emotions. But then, something happens they never prepared for. You don't react. No message, no anger, no explanation, no desire for closure, just silence. And to them, that silence isn't emptiness, it's destruction. Because their entire power lies not in their departure, but in your attempt to make them stay. When you stop trying, the game collapses. No audience, no energy to feed on, no emotional echo to prove their existence. That is the moment the narcissist begins to crumble, not because you punished them, but because your awakening ended their illusion. At that point, they try to patch the illusion in every way possible. Playing the victim, shedding tears, sending half-true, half-false messages, even reviving old memories to awaken your compassion. "I'm just lost, I need you," they say in a trembling voice. But in that moment, they are not thinking about love. They only want to see if they can still make your heart tremble. Because for the narcissist, emotion is not a bond, it's a chain of control. When you go silent, they are like an addict deprived of their drug, scrambling for a fix by tossing out small signals, a like, a polite greeting, a random message, but behind that apparent coincidence lies a calculated test. Will you respond? If you reply, even just with a simple hey or an emoji, they feel alive again, because in their mind, your reaction is proof that they still exist in your world. And if you don't respond, their deepest fear awakens, the fear of being forgotten. In the narcissist universe, to be unseen means not to exist. That's why they'll do anything to make you react, even if it means destroying your reputation, spreading rumors, fabricating stories, or turning themselves into the victim to recapture attention. But what they don't understand is that every attempt to smear you only exposes the shadow they're trying to hide. Defamation is their public confession. Every word they say about you is in truth a description of themselves. You don't need to fight back. Every reaction only feeds their narrative with more energy. When you stay silent, they lose the frame, the script, and the audience. Inside their mind, the only echo left is their own, and that's what they cannot endure. Indifference. That is what truly destroys them. Anger, arguments, even pity are all forms of energy they can feed on. But indifference is nothingness, a mirror that no longer reflects, sending them spiraling into the void of their own emptiness. You may think indifference is cruelty, but in truth, it is conscious compassion. Because by not reacting, you are no longer enabling their illusion. You are forcing them to face the hollow space within, the one they've spent their entire life avoiding. And that is why they must leave. Not because you are cold, but because they cannot exist where truth shines. On a deeper level, this is the beginning of Nigredo, the black stage of the soul's alchemy that Jung described, the phase where illusions dissolve so that truth can be reborn. For you, Nigredo is purification. For them, it is collapse. You are emerging from illusion, while they decay inside the very darkness they created. They might pretend to be fine, dating someone new, flaunting happiness, acting as if you never existed, but all of it is just a temporary sedative for an empty soul, because no new supply can replace the mirror that once showed them who they really were. And then, on the longest nights, when the audience is gone, they begin to talk to themselves. One voice whispers, "You're not the problem. They were too weak." But another voice, smaller and more lost, answers, "If you're not the problem, then why does everyone leave?" That inner dialogue marks the start of their spiritual collapse, when the soul has nowhere left to hide, and the manipulative energy that was once directed outward begins to consume them from within. At that point, you've left the chessboard, but they're still trying to play a game with no opponent. But understand this clearly, for the narcissist, an ending is never truly an ending. It's a tactical illusion. They never accept losing anyone. They simply retreat to rearrange the board. When they disappear, don't think they've forgotten you. They are watching, calculating, waiting for the right moment to return, not out of love, but out of survival. In their distorted psychology, every person who ever loved them is an energy asset, a portal that allows them to feel alive. When that portal closes, panic sets in, and that fear is not about losing you, it's about losing control over your emotions. To them, your silence is humiliation, because silence means they no longer influence your thoughts or feelings. In their mind, that equals death, since their existence depends on being seen, reacted to, acknowledged. So when you no longer respond, they must come back at any cost, through fake remorse or victimhood. The return is never random. It's a meticulously crafted campaign disguised as coincidence and sincerity. A happy birthday message, an old memory popping up, a chance encounter. Each one is a probe. They don't want to know how you are. They want to know if you still feel. If you reply, even with a simple emoji or polite sentence, they instantly feel that familiar current flowing back toward them. In that split second, they know the energy line is still open. Relief floods them, not because you've forgiven them, but because they still have power. From there, the escalation begins. They move from harmless to emotional. A late-night message, a half-truth, a nostalgic tone. "I just wanted to hear your voice one last time. No one understands me like you. I know I made mistakes, but you've changed too." Every word is chosen, like a needle aimed at your empathy. But the truth is, they don't seek reconciliation. They seek fuel. Every emotion you give, whether anger, pity, or confusion, is energy they can absorb to reignite their fading ego. When you feel moved, they don't feel love, they feel power. When you stay silent, they don't feel sorrow, they feel terror. And in that terror, their manipulative instinct rises stronger than ever. Carl Jung once wrote, "What is not made conscious will return as fate." For the narcissist, what they refuse to face is their fear of being forgotten. That fear traps them in the same endless loop. Hurt, leave, return, hurt again. They believe that by controlling others' emotions, they can avoid confronting their own emptiness. But with every cycle, the energy they extract grows weaker. Because you've changed. And this is when they enter the hoovering stage, named after the vacuum cleaner brand because that's exactly what they're trying to do, suck you back in, maybe through tears, apologies, or promises of change, maybe by acting weak. I'm losing everything, only you understand me. Or by turning aggressive, blaming you. You made me like this. It all serves one purpose, to reopen the energetic line. And the most striking part? When you respond, they don't feel relief because you forgave them. They feel relief because they still exist in your world. That's all that matters to them. From that moment, the old cycle begins again, only this time more cautious, colder, and far more dangerous. They now know you can leave, so they don't attack with rage. They manipulate with subtlety. They plant doubt, fake empathy, make you question whether you're being too harsh or unkind. They try to convince you that returning means true love. But in reality, it's just another desperate experiment of an ego terrified of dying. And then, if you ever open the door again, they will walk in as if nothing ever happened, with the same smile, the same gentle voice, the same familiar eyes. But this time, they don't come to love. They come to reclaim the right to be the one who leaves. Because in the mind of a narcissist, being abandoned is unbearable. They must be the one to end it, if only to preserve the illusion that they still control the story. You could call it an emotional addiction loop, but it's more accurately a demonic ritual of a soul that has never known love. Every time they return, it's not you they come for. It's the emptiness within they're trying to escape. They are not looking for love. They are searching for the mirror that once reflected them beautifully. They don't want connection. They want confirmation that they still matter. And the moment you no longer respond, when the door remains closed no matter how they knock, they begin to realize the most terrifying truth of all. They have lost not only you, but also the reflection of themselves that once existed through you. That's when they truly collapse, not because you left, but because they have nowhere left to hide from themselves. After every failed attempt to return, the narcissist enters their most dangerous stage, the silent collapse. On the surface, they'll try to maintain the perfect facade, smiling, posting pictures, staying busy, preaching about growth or inner peace. But inside, an ego crisis detonates quietly. They no longer have you to blame, no one left to mirror them, and therefore they no longer know who they are. All the roles that once kept them alive, the charming one, the successful one, the admired one, stop working. Your silence, which they once dismissed as weakness, now becomes the mirror they cannot bear to face. In it, they see themselves, exposed, hollow, and terrifying. Their mind begins to fragment. One part tries to cling to the old illusion, I'm fine, I'm still loved, while another whispers, no one truly cares about me. These two voices collide, creating a kind of inner chaos Jung once called the civil war of the soul. They are torn between the need to be adored and the fear of being seen through. Their longest night isn't the one when you left. It's the one when they realize no one is watching anymore. No audience, no reaction, no mirror left to reflect them, and so their entire ego system collapses in silence. Some will try to escape this pain by jumping straight into a new relationship. The new supply becomes an emotional morphine shot, numbing the thirst to be seen. They rush in, make promises, repeat the same words they once said to you, like an actor trying to reenact an old play on a new stage. But soon, that play collapses too. The new person doesn't mirror them as deeply as you once did. No one touches the hidden parts of them like you did. They find themselves repeating old lines, acting familiar scenes, but this audience doesn't cry, doesn't laugh, just watches as if they've seen it all before. And that's when real panic sets in. They spin between two instincts, the need to prove they still have power and the urge to destroy everything that once made them feel vulnerable. You, the one who saw through them, become both their obsession and their symbol of defeat. In their mind, you are the unsolved riddle, the wound that won't close. They think of you not out of love, but because you broke the law of power they lived by. You were the first who didn't apologize, didn't react, didn't get pulled back into their play. To them, that is unacceptable. Because if someone like you can escape, it means everything they believed about themselves, that they could never be abandoned, that they always had control, was a lie. As a desperate act of self-defense, they begin to distort reality. They rewrite the story. In their version, you become the betrayer, the one who changed, the cold one who doesn't know how to love. They tell others they were the ones hurt, that they were victims of someone too logical and emotionless. But don't be mistaken. This isn't to convince others. It's to convince themselves. Because if they can't hold on to the story, I'm the good one, they'd have to face the truth, that they destroyed the most genuine connection they ever had. The more they twist the story, the further they drift from reality. The quieter you are, the more chaotic they become. Each time you don't respond, a small piece of their psyche shatters. They start gaslighting themselves, whispering, "It's not over, they'll come back, they're just testing me." But as time passes and your silence remains, the wall of illusion crumbles. And in that void, for the first time, they are forced to face themselves without a mirror. This is the Nigredo stage in the spiritual process Jung called the dark night of the soul. For those on the path of awakening, Nigredo is the beginning of rebirth. But for the narcissist, Nigredo doesn't open to dawn. It becomes an endless loop of darkness. They don't dare walk through the pain to learn. They only dare to hide in old illusions. Some attempt rebirth by putting on a spiritual mask, talking about healing, karma, or energy, but it's all borrowed language. They don't feel it. They mimic it to reassure themselves that they are changing. Yet the universe has its own law. Everything built on illusion collapses when truth shines upon it. And you, the one who chose silence, are that light, the light of awareness, of boundaries, of self-mastery. No revenge, no need to prove, no desire to teach them a lesson. Your peaceful presence is the lesson. Every step you take away from chaos, every breath you take in stillness, sends an invisible message to them. Real power is not in controlling others, it's in mastering yourself. With time, you'll see that the discard was never an ending, but a sacred release. It was the moment the universe separated two souls moving in opposite directions of evolution, one toward awakening, the other toward illusion. And as you cross that threshold, you'll understand that true freedom is not about forgetting, but about no longer being ruled. Not about erasing, but about not wanting to return. Not coldness, but clarity. As for them, they remain trapped in their own circle, love, manipulate, abandon, return, and end up alone again. But with each rotation they grow weaker because their artificial energy has no one left to feed on. They will search through countless faces, countless versions of you to recreate the old story, but they will never find the same sense of power they once felt with you, because the only time they ever touched real light was through you, and they lost it. That is the tragic paradox of the narcissist. They crave true love, yet destroy everything that could bring it. And when all fades away, they have no one left to blame, no one left to manipulate, only themselves, an empty soul screaming in the darkness of its own making.